Autism Triumph. My son was so completely nonverbal and 10 years old when we started Gemini. Over 2 years later, he said his first word, and now, 3 years, he can repeat almost anything. He's requesting and starting to use sentences. When I think about what we would have missed if we had quit too soon, it brings tears to my eyes. The only way to fail is to stop using it. Hillary D., parent. My son is almost 6 with ASD and severe apraxia. He is nonverbal. We started Gemini with him yesterday, just once a day. Today was the second time we saw the video. He said elephant. Sarah F.K., parent. We have speech. A combination of Gemini every day, a diet change, multivitamins, probiotics, HBOT, and B12, and an intense little sister. Liam has language. This was filmed on Sunday. Since then, he has continued with copying words with us and started to copy Gemini on screen. So proud of him. Dave Roper, parent. We began Gemini about 21 months ago, 2 children, both with ASD. Mentioned it to our ABA analyst who had seen early research and was very optimistic. We had seen little results with the therapy we had tried to this point. At the time, our daughter was 4 and she scored at the lowest 5% in receptive language. Our son was just 2. He had only 15 sounds and almost no receptive language at all. He couldn't follow a single direction. He was very frustrated. No imitation skills at all. Very poor play skills, too. Within a week of starting Gemini, our son was pointing, imitating, and saying all the animal sounds. By 6 months, he was saying sentences. Now, over a year later, he is chatty, speaking in sentences. He's had first language test, and he's ahead for age now. With the speech delay sorted, he has become a social little boy and is just settling into his new mainstream preschool with ease. Our daughter first had small improvements in pronunciation, eye contact, attempts at conversation, watching people's mouth, and speaking more to a person than to a space. After another 2 months, we noticed more improvements. She started to use some of the scripted conversations. After 6 months, she had big gains. Last year's language score, she reached 21% after 6 months of Gemini, with received language score still in the lowest 10%. Fast forward another year, and she's just had assessment last month, and she's 47%. She is caught up to her peers. I feel Gemini allowed our girl to flourish in mainstream school. As part of primary, she barely had enough words to enter the class. A year and a half later, she is top in her class for reading. Her receptive language is hugely improved. She's following directions. Still, expressive language is challenging, but much improved. Additional achievements are a big increase in social behavior. She is playing with children. Yes, she is still behind socially, but she is definitely catching up. I cannot recommend Gemini highly enough. It has made such a difference to our children and their lives. It is so easy to use, and relative to other therapies, it is inexpensive. Due to the gains we have seen with Gemini, I now believe both my children will be capable of a successful, independent life, and that they themselves will determine their own outcome. Liz L., parent. By the way, we did not make him watch Gemini on the plane. He chose Gemini on his own, despite many other game apps on his iPad. Marianne, DL, parent. She said dog, OMG. I thought I heard her say it through the first rotation of the video, so when dog came around to the second time, I stood there and watched her, and she said it. I watched her mouth to make sure I wasn't crazy, and she really said it. I'm so happy I could cry. She even mouthed cat too, just didn't say it out loud. She is 4.5 with an ASD diagnosis, also has global developmental delay. She is nonverbal. Only word she regularly says is go. Brooke N., parent. 2 years ago, a friend sent me a link she saw on Facebook, and I scanned over it but put it in the back of my mind because it seemed too good to be true. I thought only real speech therapy would help. Finally, something told me to give it another look, and I had a different feeling. Hope. I figured we had nothing to lose. We are now almost a year in, and I've seen my 7-year-old, previously nonverbal son go from screeching as his default communication to attempting words first. He also has private speech therapy twice a week, but his therapist works with what he's learning through Gemini to layer his therapy. We are witnessing a miracle. DDS, parent. Steph was diagnosed with severe autism with global developmental delay on 6th June 2000. She did early intervention as per the practice of the time in Australia for 8 hours a week. She shared this early intervention with 9 other children, and 6 out of the 10 remained nonverbal to this day. Steph was enrolled in mainstream school in 2003. She was still not talking, but she was listening and would follow simple directions. She had an aide at school one-on-one, and they worked brilliantly together, and her tolerance for crowds, new experience, and her interest in what other children were doing grew. She was learning her letters and numbers and had about 15 words. Every now and again, she would surprise us with a whole sentence. Then she started dual placement at special school so that she could have the extra therapies. At mainstream school, she was learning to add and subtract. But at special school, they didn't even make her write her name on the top of her page. At age 12, she was forced to go to special school full-time and regressed to the point of no longer being able to write, do any simple maths, or speak. There was such a huge shortage of speech therapists, both at the school and privately due to funding changes, which meant under 6s had large amounts of funding and anyone over 6 got no help. We couldn't even buy a speech therapist. They simply were not available. The school relied on PESC and Prolo-Quo-To-Go as their only way of communicating. At age 19, she was turned down by over 30 different speech therapists, as they didn't feel that it was worth their time to try to help an older nonverbal person. In May 2017, we started using Gemini. Steph had about 4 words she used regularly. Not clear, but we knew what they meant. Within a week of starting Gemini, she had picked up 3 new words and said them clearly. After another week, 2 more. So now, 6 months later, she has about 40 words she can say. She has gained more eye contact, tries harder to participate in activities, and with prompting is trying to say new words all the time. She is watching our mouths when we speak. We recently changed videos to words that are more ones which she can use in her everyday life, foods, body parts, etc. She is still shy about speaking and rarely speaks to anyone unless she is particularly motivated, usually by food. But every word is an absolute gift and one step closer to being able to communicate her needs and wants to us all. Janine R., parent. I am ecstatic! We have had Gemini for 1 month today, but only really used it consistently for the last 2 weeks, and Jacob just decided to show me that he can say the first 3 words in Lesson 2.0. Crab, lizard, bear. You've got to be kidding me. So many happy tears. Jen V., parent. My son has been using the videos for a week now. We are at the very beginning of the program, however he is low on the autism spectrum. Anyways, I am so happy. He started imitating me when we were playing. He actually took turns playing and interact with me. It was like a dream come true. I am so excited to continue to work on this program with him. Thank you so much, Gemini. Aaron Q., parent. Eddie chooses colors and food for this evening's video. The food videos show sign language as well as pictures. Teddy has started to copy some signs, which is brilliant. Parent. We used Gemini with each meal for 4 months before I heard any verbal attempt, but I wasn't worried. I had seen on Laura Live that she said to watch for better eye contact and him not being so spaced out all the time, and we definitely saw that even the first month. He was also looking so intently at our mouths. Then one day, he just looked outside and said, "Dog." That was 3 years ago, and he is now talking in sentences. He still isn't a chatterbox, but he can say whatever he wants to say, which is usually to complain or to eat, haha. In the past few weeks, he has just started to comment on things, which is amazing to hear. It's all snapping into place. Ellie F., parent. We were told he would never talk. We used Gemini with Alex for 1.5 years and it really worked for us. Alex started to speak after 4 months of using Gemini, and he showed a massive improvement in eye contact and receptive language from week 1. Alex is no longer classed as nonverbal, and 90% of that, I would say, is due to us introducing Gemini at a young age. Definitely worth it. We are in the UK and stumbled across Gemini in a desperate attempt to help our little boy. As I said, it worked wonders. My little boy also has apraxia, hence why the speech did take a bit longer. In a classroom of his peers, the professionals now have great difficulty even pointing him out, as many of his ASD symptoms, traits, etc. have reduced dramatically. Thank you for such a fantastic resource. Donna C., parent. Gemini has been an amazing tool for our son Colton. We can't say enough words to express the benefit from this program. He gets so excited to go to Walmart, and it's not to buy a toy. Because of your program, Colton is excited to go to the produce department. That's right, I said produce department. He has such excitement in his eyes and walks around with a big smile that would light up the room. He wants to show his parents what he knows. He will always find the broccoli first. He walks around smiling and sometimes jumping while identifying fruits and vegetables. He loves to put the items in our shopping cart. He is still a picky eater, but lately showing interest in trying a few new foods. The past 2 weeks, Colton has started asking me, "What are you doing, Mama?" School has reported to me last week that he is asking his aide, "What are you doing? Where are you going?" He has learned about thunderstorms from this program, and he loves thunderstorms. This program has taught him to catch the ball and throw the ball. The list goes on and on. We put Gemini in Colton's school last year. The program is amazing. Dana M., parent. Gemini video therapy did for our 3-year-old in just a few weeks what months of live one-on-one therapy were not able to accomplish efficiently. No referrals or diagnosis needed. We got a diagnosis months after she started the program, and we believe Gemini has truly helped us get the jump on treatment. We're starting pre-K this fall. That's not to say every child is the same or every case is like ours, obviously. Parents need to look for what is working for their child, so very well worth the money. Unbelievable results are literally speaking for themselves, to coin a pun. Thank you from Debbie and me. This is truly a core part of our little one's treatment. Glory to God and grateful for Gemini. Juan and Debbie P., parent. Just to encourage those of you who wonder why your child doesn't imitate the animals, like the other success stories, we had nothing 4 months ago, and now we are up to 15 different words a day being said up to 70 times. And this is just during therapy. He has gained 40 word approximations in the past 4 months. Jamie S., parent. We have 2 autistic sons, 4 and 8. My 8-year-old is doing well with verbal, but our 4-year-old is nonverbal. The Gemini system concentrates on pronouncing words, and the program repeats the word over and over and allows the child with autism to focus on the mouth, not the whole face, while pronouncing the word. We have been doing the Gemini program for 4 weeks. We have seen progress. Andrew, our 4-year-old, has begun to mimic sounds which he did not do before. He is starting to mimic sound patterns during the session. Plus, our 8-year-old now plays along during the sessions. December 11, 2015. Update. Our son has been doing the program 3 months, increased mimicking of sounds, trying to form words, and said, "Hi" today. February 2016. Andrew said, "Bye" and waved. There are comments all over Gemini Facebook by parents whose children start to say complete words the very first day, like this one from Todd Humphreys. This is an amazing program. My son Liam has autism, and in just 3 short months, his vocabulary has gone from less than 10 words to around 100 words. His understanding is through the roof, and the progress is amazing. He also has speech dyspraxia, so some of the words aren't as clear as others, but you know what he is saying. He has also started multi-syllable words too. I will recommend this to anyone I speak to that has a child with severe speech delays here in Australia. Thank you, Gemini. James P., parent. Felix is 5 years old and had started saying 1 word at a time. For example, jump, calm, mama, dada, etc., to indicate needs before we started Gemini in May this year. A week after starting, I took a video and was surprised that he could say the words on the flashcards. That gave me hope. Jocelyn D., parent. Started my 5-year-old ASD daughter last week on Gemini. She just started talking 6 months ago, but mostly said single words like animals or foods that she wants. Her articulation is very poor. Yesterday, I made a few new videos, including the I love you clip. When I put her on the bus, I told her, "Bye, have a good day at school." She quickly turned around, waved, and said, "Bye, I love you, Mom." She's never said a sentence before. I was floored. Thank you, Gemini. Steph A., parent. When I took this video, it seemed like a miracle because he had never imitated before. My son was 3 years and 3 months. Just before that, the only sounds that he had imitated were mama, mama, and ba. That was the first time he watched Gemini. Within a month, he was using 89 words spontaneously. In another 2 months, he was using hundreds of words and putting words together. Gemini is what turned the key to unlock speech, and after a 1.5 years of speech therapy had done nothing for him. Julia G., parent. April 5th. I have to post because I'm starting to realize what a miracle this program is for my just-turned 2-year-old son with autism. We started having him watch Gemini about 3 weeks ago. He's had 0 words until last week, when he said sh for goldfish. I instantly cried. Then yesterday, while watching Gemini at dinner and holding an apple, he looked at me pointedly, held up the apple when it was on the screen, and said, "Appa." He completely made the connection and wanted to show me. Both fish and apple are on videos we show him. It feels like a miracle is happening, and we are so grateful. Thank you so much. April 6th. Okay, so now I totally credit Gemini with being a miracle. I posted yesterday that my just 2-year-old son with ASD had said fish for goldfish, but last night he started doing so much more. He started saying osh for ocean, cha-cha for cracker, ba for bear, appa for apple, and mom, all on command. I can't explain it, but it is happening. Thank you so much. We had thought he might be nonverbal forever. This is our miracle. Amy B., parent. We started our Gemini journey a little over a year ago. I originally joined to help my 10-year-old son with autism improve his clarity of speech and increase his vocabulary. And although Gemini delivered in both those areas, I am writing to praise the then unknown feature, eye tracking. This tool is pure magic. My son, when reading aloud, would read so fast a sentence sounded like a very long, unintelligible word. No matter what we did, his reading skills just stalled. About 5 months ago, we started eye tracking, word by word, to force slowing him down. It instantly seemed to be the solution we were looking for. If slowing down and improving his reading skills wasn't enough, imagine our complete elation over eye tracking and also drastically improving his writing. Like his reading, his sentences were written without spaces in between his words. We tried so many strategies to correct this, but lo and behold, as he started to read word by word in eye tracking, he too began writing word by word. It took a few months, but the spacing just happened. He just began doing it. Thank you, Gemini. Gina P., parent, aka One Thrilled Mommy. After 3 weeks on level 1, interactive, our son barely looks us in the eyes, let alone now, pointing and grabbing for our attention. This made me cry, watching the tongue and face video, and then he wants to see if Daddy has the same while laughing. Oh, my heart. This program is amazing, and I'm so excited to see where our son will be in 6 months. Candace O., parent. We had our son, just turned 5, in speech, occupational, developmental, and physical therapy since he was about 6 months old. We started Gemini Friday night. Yesterday, he said cow when his therapist asked him what the animal was. Then he quacked as he asked what a duck says. I'm in shock. I'm in awe. I'm in heaven. I could kick myself for not starting this sooner. Yet I'm so amazingly grateful that I found this. Thank you, Gemini. Jamie W., parent. My son has been saying more and more words since he started Gemini. The week after he started, he went to school, and they couldn't believe the difference he had made. Sometimes he doesn't seem interested in some of the videos, but we keep playing them anyway. He loves taking the test after each one. He might not be paying attention to the video, but as soon as it's time to take the test, he knows every single picture. Danny D., parent. We first started, I believe, last January. I started off with putting it on Quick Start and doing the sessions as told. My boy took to them. He also loved home videos and YouTube videos, so this was up his alley. We knew he knew the basics that Gemini was teaching. At the beginning, he didn't say much and he still had that babble talk, unless specifically asked about something, and the occasional throw out of a word if really motivated. Then I fell through with playing so much, even trying random videos so he wouldn't get bored. Our child's main problem is speech and language as an ASD kid. I started playing them less and less. Why? Most of the time he would just turn them off himself. He didn't seem to be moving forward much and appointments took over. I discovered a PS4 and TV connection this last month and started where I left off, randomly playing the animal ones and knowing where his language needed to go, playing more advanced videos. Well, you know the hi, stop, what animal is this, stop, jump, stop, etc. video? I played it, and he just started doing the motions and saying what was on the video. I taped it. I'm super happy with what I thought had no effect on my kid, except to reinforce his knowledge and helping him say a few words he was already saying better. I went on to the animal videos, and he was saying every animal sound, slow pronunciation with the faster pronunciation. So I end with this Saturday night with Gemini. This time I went to Conversation 1, beginning section, saying, I love you. Can you help me carry the box? Are you hungry? Well, it was time to go up for a snack, and he went upstairs to my husband, saying, Are you hungry? Today at supper I said, It's almost time to eat, and he sat at the table saying, Are you hungry? Which we are interpreting as I am hungry. Huge leap and bounds. Not only does he repeat these words, his pronunciation is much better, and his babbling, which we think is mimicking our faster-paced speech, has slowed down to a more understandable and more clear speech. And boy, his requests are becoming more than 3-word requests statements. He is now telling us with more assertiveness what he wants. I will continue to use Gemini, as it has proven to be useful even when I thought my child wasn't listening. It's a tool for me, a mom who's learning to teach speech and language. Maria A., parent. We have used Gemini with my 5-year-old ASD son for a couple of months just trying to figure it out. Being French-speaking, we pretty much used most of the French content with him, and a lot being about animals. We weren't on a specific schedule for the videos since we have other therapies that keep him busy also. We just squeezed in the sessions when we could. During a trip to the toy store yesterday, our little guy asked, with sentences, to look at every single stuffed animal that he saw that corresponded to the words he learned in Gemini. Last year, this kid only had a couple of words in his vocabulary. It's been over a month since we've used the program, and still we are seeing results. He even uses the same accent as the person in the videos. Tina O., parent. Brilliant progress with my 2-year-old son, Grayson. 4 words in the first month, with lots of eye contact and interaction. He enjoys it, too. I was told that it probably wouldn't work, especially as it's American words, too. Well, it proved them wrong. The speech therapist couldn't believe the difference in him these last 2 months. Carrie Ann D., parent. So I caught my girlie pretending to be a Gemini model this evening. She has come so very far. ASD from severe speech apraxia, 1 word here and there, to full sentences. We still have some work to do, but couldn't have done it without the help of Gemini. Just listen to her enunciation. It takes time, but for us it sure has worked alongside with the other therapies we are utilizing. Thanks so much. Genevieve T., parent. Alex is 6 years old. He was diagnosed with ASD just after his 2nd birthday. He has some motor planning issues and apraxia of speech. When Alex was 4, we started Gemini. We were doing good. He was attempting sounds he had never made before. Fluoroscopy got him interested in his mouth and tongue, and he would look in our mouths to see how we made words. We also saw eye contact increase. More awareness, but speech is a huge challenge, so I knew we were in for a lot more work. No clear words in the 18 months of Gemini. Due to a change in childcare, we took a 3-month break. At the end of the summer, he went into a full imitation phase. Whatever his brother was doing, he would do. He took off on his bike like he always knew how to pedal. He started copying the way we sit, and when we played Just Dance, he joined in. Playing Twister, he joined in. I knew I had to start Gemini and take advantage. This time, I just did the language pyramid, and I am assigning canned videos and rotating them every week. We have animal sounds, the rooster, the tiger, the chick. He thinks it's so funny when we all make like a chick. I also got his teacher interested. We are going to try to watch on this iPad in the classroom, which will make it easier to get the 3 times a day repetition, since we can usually only manage 2, breakfast with Dad and evening with Mom. That, in a nutshell, is our Gemini story. Looking forward to next week, however long it takes. Gina N., parent. When we started this journey a year ago, Jonah could say one word, done. We had therapists work with him once a week, but once he turned 3, he graduated from that particular program, and we lost all one-on-one support. Our evaluator told us that early intervention was paramount in his development. We were on so many waiting lists, some over a year long, for any kind of help, that we had to take Jonah's development growth into our own hands. I saw an ad for Gemini and decided to give it a shot. I didn't know if it would help or not, but it was about the only option we could find. It felt like if we didn't continue with his interventions, he would start to regress developmentally. Gemini ended up being a tremendous first step in our journey for us, because it was something we could be productive about. We could do it right from home or on any screen connected to the internet, and Jonah seemed to take to it as soon as we started. The shapes and colors video were some of his favorites, and here we are nearly a year later. You can see him applying what he has learned foundationally through Gemini and now reinforced at preschool. Seeing his learning go from watching it on screen to imitating the words to understanding the correlation between the concept and the word to generalizing that knowledge outside of his learning environment, it's like watching a small miracle with every step. Jason, parent. I have to share, and hopefully will give others who are starting with Gemini some hope. My son is 3 with ASD. He's been nonverbal and would only just randomly babble. No imitation, no echolalia, just vocal play and definitely no functional speech of any kind. We started Gemini 4 months ago, and he didn't say anything or imitate, but he started showing a huge increase in his interest in spoken language. I have been a Gemini believer since the beginning because I saw the change in him, even though he wasn't speaking. Well, he just started pointing to letters and saying them, and today this happened. I'm so excited. Jeanette G., parent. On World Autism Awareness Day. So here's what's been happening in the house today to celebrate. What better way to celebrate with Joe talking more today than any day he's been here? We've heard, "What does a cheetah say?" More bubbles, to Daddy when he stopped blowing them. Shape identification, Joe, heart, me. Oh my God, Jason, did you hear that? Jason, no. Me, Joe, what shape is this? It's a heart. Can you say it again? Joe, heart. Jason, beaming. Joe is outside splashing in puddles and counting all the way to 10 with every splash. We sing a song to Joe that he recognizes to get him to play on the bongos. I think we must have got at least 10 bongo solos today. Chip off the old block. And to top it off, he puts on a pair of dress-up glasses in front of the mirror on his own. So, what's been happening in your house today? Happy, happy, happy World Autism Awareness Day. It's our first, and one I will never forget. Layla H., parent. We knew Cody especially would be slow to talk, but we could see how closely he paid attention to Gemini. We knew it was getting through, and we knew eventually it would come back out. Lainey benefited from seeing these videos from a very early age because she would watch them with Cody during snack time. Once we realized she was probably on the spectrum too, we were so thankful she'd been exposed to Gemini all along. Thank you all so much for everything you do. Please know that what you do when you go to work every day is making real differences in people's lives. Stacy VT, parent. I have been doing Gemini with my son, who was diagnosed nonverbal autistic for 4 months. He didn't respond immediately. I went into the Gemini library and chose videos that said it would help spark verbal skills. I added those videos to his assignments. He is on a routine. Morning Gemini he views 4 times repeatedly, then before bed 4 times, sometimes 3. But I take what he's learning and teach him sign language using the tools Gemini taught him from the video. He started saying yes, thank you, and no. He will even sign those words. So I say to everyone who may not see results or is skeptical, I am an average person, mommy of 3, and this was the best learning tool I got for my son. The key is to stick with it and use what the program is teaching throughout your child's daily routine. I hope this encourages someone because I cried for weeks not knowing how to help my son. Now I cry because I can communicate with him, hear his voice with him actually communicating with me in my world. So thank you, Gemini. Shanika 8, parent. Just over 2 weeks into Gemini with my son who is 29, he has learned to answer the question, "How are you?" appropriately from many rooms in the house. Now he says this, "You're welcome," when someone thanks him, and this, close with both please and thank you, appropriately and not echoing. He is washing his hands much more thoroughly. His behavior has improved, less fixating on obsessions, because he has generalized no repeating for echolalia to his repetitive speech. When we watch the videos together, he has much better eye contact with me, and he does not like me touching him except for tickling. If I put my hand on his leg or shoulder, he always pushes it away. But now, watching videos, I'm casually touching him and he's not pushing me away. And he is excited about all of these things. We finished a session and practicing a little while ago, and he started telling me, "Show Lynn, job coach, no repeating, please, thank you, wait in line, etc., etc." Beverly F., parent. We started Gemini in September when my son, who has autism, mainly spoke in 2-word sentences, want, drink. Anything longer than that, the structure of his sentences made no sense at all. Pragmatic language disorder. His receptive language was also really poor, and most of the time he'd just say yes to everything I said because he didn't know any other way to respond. All this has changed with Gemini, and the last week my son, who used to act like the other kids didn't exist, stood up in front of his class for a show and tell and asked and answered everybody's questions for 10 minutes with no support. I'm sharing this all over the place because I think everyone who has a disability or condition which affects speech development should try this. Kate S., parent. I cannot thank you enough for developing this program. After about 6 months of watching the videos, my grandson, Caleb, not only began repeating the words, he signs like a champ. His frustration level has diminished greatly now that his ability to communicate has increased. He counts to 20, knows his alphabet, recognizes food at the grocery store. His speech and ABA therapists have recommended it to other early intervention families. Caleb's younger brother, Gavin, who is being evaluated for ASD, is receiving EI services, is also watching the videos. He just said his first word 2 weeks ago. God bless you. Judy KG, parent. My 6-year-old without instruction watched for a bit. About 10 minutes in, he started copying the close-ups, articulating better. He folded his clothes for the first time ever because the boy in the video did. He washed his face and brushed his teeth and cleaned up after with no fight or issue, like the boy did. He used the word almost correctly on the way to church. Almost there, like the boy reaching up could almost reach. He had fun during the funny parts I added in, cowboy, kids, cat videos, squirrel video, etc. He watched a 20-minute video twice through, started with a boy saying his name on video, and he was sold, LOL. I custom made it randomly last night after watching the tutorials. I have an appointment scheduled for tomorrow. He is going to do great with this for sure. We need help in expressive, articulation, conversation, daily life, and school stuff. It's all there. Lisa C.Y., parent. My 12-year-old with autism has been completely nonverbal his whole life. Not even sound imitation. He did have 3 words for about a month when he was 17 months old, but lost those. Within 3 to 4 weeks of using Gemini, he watches about 30 to 40 minutes a day total. He says pop for popcorn, one of his favorite foods, and bye, not extremely clear, but it is there. He is also starting to form sounds, letters with his mouth, no voice yet. It's a wonderful start for him. I've cried many days since we started about 6 weeks ago with the program. Tears of joy. His SLP is very on board with Gemini and uses it with him and several of our other clients now. We can't wait to see what the future holds. I would say definitely give it a try for about 6 months to see what happens. If my completely nonverbal son can say some words after using Gemini, I would say anyone can get some benefit from it. I wish he had quicker success, however. I keep telling myself that it takes babies 3 to 4 years to vocalize language, so I shouldn't expect quick results from my son. Melissa L., parent. My grandson, Micah, was nonverbal 3 months ago. Not one word, very little eye contact, and I did not exist. After starting Gemini, he has made leaps and bounds. Last night, for the first time in 3 years, my grandson came to me to ask for help opening a box. He came to me, made eye contact, and said help. Best night of my life. Karen H., grandmother. My son, 29, intellectual disability, ASD, among other things, answered a why question this morning. Ever since age 4 or 5, he would burst into laughter, and we never ever knew what he was thinking. I would always ask what was funny or why he was laughing, and the best he might say would be silly. We've been walking the dogs, feeding the chickens each night, and going over concepts from Gemini during that time. 2 nights ago, the grass was wet, and I asked why, and he responded with an answer that didn't make sense. So I said, "Look at the grass. It is wet. Why is it wet?" And he said, "Rain. We had a storm earlier." I was thrilled, but it gets better. This morning, he was eating breakfast and breaks into laughter. I asked what was funny. "Why are you laughing?" He said, "You don't put jelly on your hat." First time in 29 years. I know now what made him laugh out of the blue. I immediately texted his coach in excitement to share the news. It gets even better. Yesterday at lunch, he was eating PB&J and got some jelly on his hat that he had to wipe off. So he was remembering that, laughing about yesterday's memory, and told me. We've been watching the Quick Start WA questions for about 2 weeks now. Happiest mom today ever. Beverly H., parent. We started Gemini when Aria was 3 and had been diagnosed with ASD and nonverbal. Gemini opened the door for her to begin to try and speak. This was more effective for her than any speech therapy she was attended, and we are so thankful we found this program. Kei Shimate, parent. We started Gemini in February of 2016 with my son only being able to say some words and very short 2 to 3 word sentences at a time, which no one but me understood. By May of 2016, doing only Gemini and diet change to GFGC, he was having short conversations. Today, he is a chatterbox. Sunny N. King, parent. Mason began Gemini in 2015 when he was 3 years old. At that time, he was completely nonverbal and had been in speech therapy since age 2. Immediately upon watching the videos, I could see he was interested in watching. Shortly after, he began studying my mouth when I spoke and even started reaching out to touch my mouth. I knew something was clicking in him. I kept on with Gemini every day for 4 months until he finally said his first word, apple, at the supermarket while grabbing an apple. It was amazing. From then on, we have continued with Gemini and his language has soared. He is now 6 years old and can read and spell and type words into a computer. We've also used Gemini for tons of behavior modeling and also to expose him to things like birthdays and holidays. It works wonders, and I'm so glad Gemini found its way into our lives. Jeanette Gaunt, parent. Gemini showed up on my Facebook feed at the perfect time. I was a panicked mom looking for help while we were on the therapy waiting lists. Our little guy had very simplistic speech, but just enough to get his needs met. The minute we started, his speech took off, and it wasn't just imitating. Now our 18-month-old, who shows signs of autism, watches them with his brother. Nothing is sweeter than hearing a little voice say, "iPad, Gemini, please." Lenny Jessen Crow, parent. How it began. One night, feeling desperate and defeated, I looked up at the stars and asked my dad to please help me get through to my two beautiful babies who can't speak to me, both with autism and one with severe apraxia. They were 3 at the time. As I was scrolling through Facebook, I suddenly stopped when I saw the word Gemini, knowing it's twins and knowing my father was a Gemini. I saw Laura Kasbar speaking of her twins and how it changed her life, and I knew this was my sign from my dad up above to try it. Well, the first time I put it on, Maya, my daughter, started saying bear. Then she went on to cassowary. And after that, she repeated everything, including the whole skit from "What does a bear say?" etc. My son Leonardo took longer, but he is 5 now and asks us, "What does a lion say?" etc. We haven't stopped exploring with Gemini, and we won't stop. It's been a daily tool in our lives, and we are so grateful for it. The first picture is the twins watching Gemini together. Kimberly Fusca, parent.